Hello, welcome to the Pivot Ability Show. Today we've got Clark Lunt from Burn Your Boats on. Welcome, Clark. How you doing?
I'm glad to be here. I feel like I'm in some of the inaugural episodes, so it's good to be here and excited to have a chat about life today.
Yeah, me too. So we have only had like two chats before this. We met through a mastermind, and we got connected, and I learned that you're a visionary. And I think you were the first person who was like, "So we're visionaries. We need integrators. Yeah, integrators." And
Integrators, right?
since then, I've been like, okay, now I know that I need that. I didn't know that before. So yeah, I guess I'm excited to hear about your story, and you can start wherever it makes sense for you.
Well, we all. I don't want to bore your audience too much, but I'm 41. I live in Tampa, Florida. I've been in real estate for God, really since I graduated college. But grew up in Virginia. Lived there for 13 years. Went to high school in Dallas. Went to college at Oklahoma State. Go Cowboys. I quickly moved from Oklahoma because Oklahoma was not my favorite state to live in. So I quickly, literally moved the next day after I graduated to Florida. And
Wait,
I've been,
what? How did you make that happen?
so I literally had graduated on a Saturday and, parents came up and loaded up a U-Haul. And I probably I don't even remember if I needed a U-Haul because the amount of things that I owned was like, the clothes on my back basically. And moved on Sunday to Florida. And I've been back to Oklahoma twice and never looked back. And it was the easiest decision I've ever made. So if you live in
So did you
Oklahoma and you're
already have
listening to this, then I'm sure it's still great there, but it wasn't for me.
did you already have family in Florida? Did you have a job lined up?
Yeah, it's a good question. I didn't have a job lined up. My parents had a house in Pensacola, Florida, that I stayed at very briefly, and then I moved to Orlando, and I did not have a job. So I thought it'd be cool to live in Orlando, and so I moved to Orlando without a job.
Wow. Okay. See, when I was graduating, I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to find a job for some reason. It wasn't difficult actually, thankfully. But yeah, I don't know if I would have just gotten up and gone to a brand new state, and been like, "Yep, I don't have a job. Let's just figure it out."
I, I remember I had a law professor, and he made a statement. He left a profound impact on me. He's my favorite teacher that I really enjoyed. I took like every single class he taught in college, and I was a broadcasting major, so I wasn't even like a business major. But he said, "Look, you're gonna have plenty of time to like get that job that you want, but." Don't get sucked. Go move where you want to live. Like, where do you want to live? Go move there and then find the job, as opposed to what everyone else does, where they're like, you go to I remember my senior year, there was like going to career fairs and things like that, where you're like interviewing, you're talking to all these companies, and wherever they are is kind of where you move. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm moving to Florida. I don't like Oklahoma. And so I moved to Orlando, and I was like, I'll figure it out. And that's basically what I did.
Why Florida though?
I mean, the weather's beautiful. So, I mean, I
Okay.
enjoy right now. It's like snowing in most places and it's 68 degrees right now. So, I think that anytime you have a place where it's sunny most of the time, people are focused on their health, and it's easier to, go outside and run for a jog, go outside and run. Just being healthier is easier. So it's like the things that I want to do in life, they need to be easy, right? Because it's like,
Hmm.
not it's easy to go lay on the couch, right? But if it's like 12 degrees outside and snowing, it's gonna be harder for me to want to go jog in that for multiple reasons. So just looking at that and trying to surround myself with like people that are bigger, faster, stronger than me. I was just thinking there wasn't a lot of thought that went into it, but I'm like, it's my
Yeah.
choice.
No, I like that. I'm just thinking out of like all 50 states, like how would you land on Florida? And I'm so glad you say that because I'm actually in a crux a little bit right now. I currently live in Denver. I moved here for work, and I went to San Diego for the very first time 6 months ago. I've been back once per month since
Wow.
then. And I really want to live there, but
Yeah,
I don't have anything that's like actually taking me there. And I am a risk taker, so it wouldn't be that strange for me to just like leave.
you should do it.
But I'm also like, why? Why am I going to do that? So I don't know. We'll
Can
see.
I'll ask you a question. Why not?
Why not? I think because it's just, I don't know, like the idea of California scares me, but San Diego doesn't feel like the California that I have in my head. So that's why it's attractive to me. And like I really like the weather. So let me tell you all the reasons why I want to move there. It's like right next to Mexico, right? So basically I have domestic flights both in
Right.
Mexico and in the US, like at my
Yep.
fingertips. The weather's really nice. I like the fact that, you can go to the beach most of the year. Pacific is calm. And everyone that I've met over there is also just, I don't know, they fit into the kind of circle of people I want to be around at this phase in my life. So maybe I should take a page from your book and just get up and go.
I mean, I think that like to your point about like where people are, right? Like I think that especially a lot of people that I've had a lot of conversations just being in masterminds and people that live in smaller towns, a lot of times they outgrow their friend group very, very quickly. And it's very difficult. Like they literally have to like pay to be in these groups, these mastermind groups and things like that to be able to try and find other like-minded individuals.
Mm-hmm.
As whereas if you lived in San Diego, right? Or you live in Denver, I'm sure it's the same thing. Living in Tampa, I think is similar. Is like there's so many entrepreneurial type minded people that it just makes it easier to like surround yourself with good people that have good ideas, and we have different discussions about things. And it's lighter. It's just easier to find those people. It's still important to go, put yourself in rooms with a lot of smart people through like mastermind groups, which is like as you alluded to how we met. But I think that any time that it's easier to do something, it makes it easier to succeed. And that's why it's like, okay, I want to move to a place where people are healthy, people are driven, and I just want to be able to surround myself with that. So
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that because like your circle really does make a difference in like your everyday decisions, like even part of your daily habits. Um, I think I have subscribed to a healthier lifestyle here in Denver versus what I had in Houston. A little more walking and a little more desire for movement and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I do get you on the weather though. Like right now that it's snowing outside, I don't want to go for a walk.
yeah, of course. Like it's like depressing, right? Like it's like snowing and it's cold and it's like why do you want to like I wouldn't want to do that either. And I think that it's like one of my favorite books is Atomic Habits, right? And
Mm,
and James Clear talks about like you have the things that you quote unquote maybe don't want to do, right? Like you want to work hard at your job, you want to be healthy, you want to eat that salad instead of that cheeseburger, right? So it's like how do you do that? And you have to make things easier. So it's like if every night I go to sleep, but before I do, I set out my gym clothes like directly next to my bed. So when I wake up, they're right there, right? Like put a bottle of water right next to my bed, put the gym in between. Like if I went to a W-2 job every day, like go find the gym that's directly in between my job and my house. So it makes it easier for me to drive right by it and just swing in as opposed to going something that's like 30 minutes away, right? So I kind of take that philosophy about life, about things I know I should do, but sometimes they're hard. We're all human beings. We're not robots. So we, need a kick in the pants sometimes. So I need to make it as easy as possible on myself to do the things that are sometimes hard to do. So it's like living in a place that's warm all the time. Well, that makes it easier to go outside. That makes it easier to go network, right? Things like that.
hmm
So,
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Awesome. So you get to Orlando is where you
yep,
move. Like you were in
yep,
Pensacola, but that was just like a stepping
yeah.
stone, and then you moved to
Yep.
Orlando. And how long did it take you to, I guess, start your life?
Well, I lived in Orlando for like a year. I was like completely broke. I did odd jobs. I was a roof salesman. Like it's not what I wanted to do, but I needed to pay the rent, so I did that. And then ultimately, I moved back to Pensacola. My family owned a window and door company, so I worked for them for like 10 years, and I wanted to immediately go into sales. And my dad was like, "You are not going into sales. You're going to go like learn from the ground up." So he made me I literally worked as a window installer for like a year, and I hated every moment of it. I got there at 6 a.m. in the morning, and we're hoisting these heavy ass windows around that I did not enjoy, but I did learn a lot. And then I did odd jobs within the company for the next year. So for 2 years, it was kind of like like an internship, kind of like a paid internship, as I learned how to navigate through the company. And then for the final 8 or 9 years, I was in sales. But looking back, I was a much better salesperson because I understood the ins and outs. And I wasn't just like saying, quote unquote, what I thought was going to happen. I actually did it and could talk about it. So I did that for like 10, 11 years total before I went out on my own and kind of bought a real estate franchise in 2015 that I did for about just right up until about COVID.
What kind of a real estate franchise? I didn't know there were franchises in real estate.
So for real estate investing, so there's a franchise called Homevestors We Buy Ugly Houses, and they have the little caveman guy. They're all over. I'm sure they're in Denver. They're in all like the big markets and smaller markets. And so I owned that for 5 or 6 years. I owned a couple of them. I owned one in Orlando, I owned one in Pensacola, and then I owned one in Tampa. with my ex-wife, wife at the time. And so we ran that, and it was an amazing stepping stone from instead of like being like, okay, I'm a W-2 employee, right? And I've got all this infrastructure. My parents' company had like 25 employees. So I was just one little piece of that. So being able to kind of like gently transition into like an entrepreneurial role, but through a franchise, I'm glad that I left the franchise, but I have a high amount of respect for me being able to get. It's like they give you a playbook, right? It's like, I could start Clark's sandwich shop, but Subway probably knows how to do it a little bit better than Clark's sandwich shop, right? And people probably have not heard of Clark's sandwich shop either. So it is nice to like have that. It does have a low ceiling in terms of
Hmm.
what your ability to really grow the thing. You just have to keep buying more of them. And you don't really have much control, and you kind of think you own your business, but you kind of don't. So they do a good job of kind of selling that, but it gave me an amazing roadmap to where I wasn't just like left on my own to say, hey, go figure it all out on your own.
Wow. So I see, I had seen that growing up. I grew up in Houston, and I would always think like, why would anyone want to get an ugly house? Like, why would
Right.
anyone pay for this? And like, they're probably
Yeah.
just, trying to get the land. I didn't put much thought into it. It just didn't make sense when I was a kid. And I have never really been in the real estate space up until last year. So I get to learn about real estate and all of the different branches of real estate.
Right.
Not every single one, but a lot of them. And I come across what wholesaling is, which is basically being the middleman, right,
Yeah.
between a
That's a good
buyer
way
and
to
a
describe it.
seller. And then I was like, oh, okay, so that We Buy Ugly Houses, they're just wholesalers. Like that's what I have always thought until now. So how does that business model work? I guess is it not just an individual wholesaler then, or like what
Yeah,
is
I
it?
mean, you own your own little like market, right? So there's usually like in Houston, there was a bunch. There's probably 30 or 40 different like, i.e., franchise owners, and then you kind of share the marketing spend, and then you get a lead, and it's your lead. Like Sally, the seller wants to sell, that's your lead. So none of the other franchisees can go to that lead, but you do have like leeway. You can wholesale it, meaning like you can assign the contract where you don't actually use your own money and you sell it to someone else prior to closing, which is pretty common, especially when you're first starting out. But you can still buy it and fix it up and flip it or keep it as a rental. So they didn't care what you did with the property, but they did care that you paid for marketing and it went through their franchise. So that was a kind of a big revenue generator for the franchisor.
Hmm.
So it tended to handcuff me a little bit in terms of like if the group didn't want to advertise in XYZ city or area, then we wouldn't do it. So it didn't matter if I did or I didn't. If the group voted against it, then we couldn't do it. So you had some limitations on things that you could do, which is why I tended to eventually steered away from it. But like I said, like I'm very appreciative because it gave me the confidence. And we talked about that. I talked about that a lot on our podcast, is like a
Hmm.
lot of times when you're first getting started, right? You're just like having the confidence to move to San Diego, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't have friends. Getting that confidence early on is so important to be able to make like bigger steps, maybe take a little bit quote unquote bigger risks. And so I give them all the credit for helping to like instill that confidence in me.
Yeah, there's something to be said about knowledge, right? Knowledge is power, and it does give you confidence to move in a certain direction. And even, I would even like extend that into knowing how much of a risk you're taking. So calculated risk, it allows you to take bigger decisions. So it's smart to start with someone who can teach you. I don't know if there's this, I don't remember her name. I think her name is like Lisa. You know what? Let me not butcher it. But she basically sells this course about buying, like, what is it called? Like the shipping containers, no, oh my gosh, like the mailboxes, right, that you put like in an apartment complex or something and people can like come in and out. And so her way of getting started was she asked her local post office, like, hey, can I come in and like document everything you do, I'll pay you for it.
Wow.
So that's how she got
Interesting.
started, and now she's like made something big of it. Nice. Which is nice. So yeah, like it's a good thing to start with learning first.
Yeah, for sure. I just like, I know that like it's like every time you grow, right? Like a lot of people that are probably listening to this are like they're trying to get to that next step, whatever that is in their life, whether it's in a relationship or in business or in their job or whatever that may be. But then you get the confidence, right? You take the action, and then you get to the next step, and you're like, all right, now I need the confidence to grow again, right? So it's like a
Yeah.
constant like circle of life of like, like I know, like for me, I look back at what I've done, and I feel pretty proud of like the success I've had over the years, but I still want to be much more successful than I am right now. And while
Hmm.
I'm confident about certain things, I'm scared shitless about other things that like I need more confidence to be able to do. So it's like a constant like push and pull of like getting the confidence to take that next step.
Yeah, I think I love that little line that Brian preaches all the time, which is what
Yep.
got you here won't get you there, which is
Right.
true, right? You have
Yeah.
to learn new skills and be willing to adapt. So, how long were you with We Buy Ugly Houses before you moved on, and what
I
did you
was
decide to move on to?
Yeah, I sold it right before right when literally like when COVID, everything started shutting down during COVID. So it was easy to remember that time. Went out, did it a year on my own, where I basically replicated the same business model just without the handcuffs.
Hmm.
Learned very quickly that there's a lot that I didn't know that I wasn't doing. And then you get
Hmm.
on your own and you figure out like as a business owner that nothing gets done. Like you don't just wave wands and things just happen. Like you have to do all the like nitty gritty things. You have to do all the high level stuff. The phone just doesn't ring like on its own. Like something has to happen that you have to do. And there may be 5, 6, 10 steps to get that phone to ring, to get that, that lead to come in through email, whatever it may be. A lot of it costs money. That's kind of the risk, but I know looking back that like, I'm so glad I did it. I've never looked back and said I regret ever like quitting my W-2 job. But there have been times where I'm like, God, I just wish I could just be responsible for like the sales that I make, like in my previous company, where it's like maybe the other salespeople weren't doing well that month, but I was making my sales. And it's like, hey guys, I'm doing my part. It's not once you go out on your own, you may be doing your part, but if the rest of your team isn't, it's still not going well. And so I miss those days sometimes of having less responsibility. I was listening to a podcast the other day and someone asked a question and they said, do you wish sometimes that you were less ambitious? And then like that question like stuck in my head of like, God, there's some times where I would love to just clock out at like 5:30 p.m. on a Tuesday and like not give a what until the next day at 9 a.m. Like that's not my problem, like that I heard that and I was like, damn, I do wish sometimes I was less ambitious.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we go through seasons. At least I've seen that in my life so far. I have had instances where I'm just an employee and like your first jobs, right? I was a cashier at some point, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm tired of people telling me when to come into work and what to
Right.
do and blah, blah, blah. And then I ended up in a position where I had to manage a business and employees and everything that comes with that. And then there were so many days that I would go home and just like, I just want to be an employee.
Yeah.
Like just tell me what to do, what time to show up. I'll be there. So it comes in waves, right? And I think we just have to be grateful with what we have while we have it. You said something that I wanted to ask you about. I'm blanking, but anyway. So you did that for a year. So you did it by yourself. That's what it was. You did it by yourself. What was that like? I guess getting hit in the face with, oh, there is more to this than what I thought there was.
Yeah,
Was it a humbling experience in any way?
oh, extremely humbling. And also too, I was going through a divorce. I lost my two dogs, my two beagles that I had for like 13 and 15 years. So like it all like I caught lightning in a bottle going the reverse way. So it was definitely very humbling. And I like to do things with partners. I like to succeed together and I like to fail together, right? Because even if you fail and you have a partner, you're able to kind of like digest it and say, all right, how do we F up, right? Like, what did we do wrong and what can we do to fix this, right? That conversation is less fun when you're having it in the mirror. Like, it just is. Like, the feedback isn't as good, right? Like, you tend to like suppress the things that you don't want to talk about and you tend to just talk about the things that you want. But if you have a partner, so doing the business with my wife at the time, it was fun. Like we had a lot of good times. We were able to like kind of celebrate when we did well, and then we kind of gave each other a big hug when things weren't going quite as well. Unfortunately, life, sometimes you tend to grow apart. And this, as a 27-year-old, I was different than I was as a 37-year-old, right? And same for her. So unfortunately, it didn't work out, and that's okay. It was an amicable split, and I wish her the best, and I'd still help her if I could in any way, and I'm sure she would do the same. But we just figured that it wasn't the right split. Going through that change of having to go through a divorce during COVID, I will say this, I shed 0 tears when I got divorced, but I shed a lot of tears for my two beagles. That was like just as hard, if not harder than going through the divorce. Yeah, within a month of each other. Like my second
Oh
one
my
had like
gosh.
broken heart syndrome, where it was like very quickly after the first one because they were homies for life. And
Yeah.
so that was difficult. And then, oh, by the way, now I'm going to start a brand new business with what I thought I had all the tools because I just came from the franchise. Then I realized, oh, wait a second, the franchise did a bunch of stuff and had a lot bigger budgets to be able to create these systems that I had to
Mm-hmm.
go out and learn on my own. I do lean a lot on I joined a different mastermind that helped me to really go in and try and say, all right, tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, what do you do? Like, you look successful. What tool do you use? Right. And so I'm not
Yeah.
scared to ask people. I think that that's what, excuse me, that's one of the things that I do feel like is a big skill set of mine is like, basically I like the analogy of it's like going into the gym, seeing the fittest dude at the gym or the fittest chick, tap them on the shoulder and say, what do you do? Right. And if their answer is like, go do cartwheels for 30 minutes a day, I would do cartwheels because those cartwheels help them to achieve whatever they do. So, I use that same analogy in business.
There's something to be said about that though, because sometimes you get advice that you don't like.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
for
but
sure.
if it's the result of like what you want, then it's kind of like a little internal battle of like, what do I want more, comfort or results? So I think it's a good practice, or I guess character trait, to be able to receive guidance and
Yeah.
follow it.
Yeah. And I think too that a lot of times that you said comfort versus like not being, usually it's always not being comfortable, right? So it's a constant kind of like ripping the band-aid off. Like what you've been doing is not going to get you to where you want to go, like you kind of mentioned earlier. And that's because it's probably a bunch of stuff you don't want to do, right? Because it's scary, it's risky, it's expensive, it's, there's a chance that it won't work out. Maybe you don't have a lot of other friends or network that are doing the same thing, so you look crazy when you're doing it. But I think proof's in the pudding. And when I see results with someone in terms of how well they're doing, we're not the same people, right? So it's not like it means if they're successful, then I'll be successful at that exact same thing. But I sure as hell can copy their homework and see if it works.
So really, yeah, that's a really good point. So you mentioned that, so you said 27 to 37. So you guys were married for roughly 10 years. Was it COVID that highlighted the this is not working anymore, or it was before that?
Yeah, I think it was before that. I think it was one of those things where it's like, the analogy where it's like you're on a plane and if it like shifts 1 degree different, like instead of going from like Washington DC to Philly, you end up in like Chicago or something.
Yeah.
And I think so it's like just a slow over time. It wasn't like any one thing that like made it worse. And she left right when COVID hit. So we didn't have the like we're stuck in the apartment together and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. So it like I'm very thankful for the experience. Like it was a great 10 years of my life, and I learned a lot. You tend to when you go through an experience like that, that you kind of self reflect and you need to figure out like why did it go wrong. Just like if you made a bad deal in real estate, like you sit back and you're like, why did I buy that thing or what did I do wrong? Well, it's the same thing in life, right? In relationships, like who it's not like, oh, it was all her fault or all my fault, but it's like what could I have done differently to be able to be a better partner? What could I have done differently to maybe grow my, emotional intelligence a little bit? And that I think would definitely, I learned a lot from it. And I'd like to think that I'm a better partner now than I was before, and able to kind of step back, maybe count to 10 every once in a while before I make a decision.
Yeah, that's some solid advice there, counting the 10. I think I really like the fact that you mentioned that it was an amicable split and that, you guys are on really good terms. How does a couple accomplish that? Because I think a lot of couples would benefit. Like, there does come a point in any relationship where you're just like, we're not the same anymore. And this also happens even in families. Um, and it's hard to step into that next phase without letting go of the good, right?
Right. That's a tough question. I think I'd like to think that it's not like there's one thing that I felt like I did or didn't do or she didn't do to be able to like say, oh, it was amicable. Like it starts from like the first date, right? And if you're with someone and you don't trust, like they're not like my ex is a reasonable person, like she's rational, she's not like resentful or anything like that. She didn't have any previous like experiences with like exes where she like did something really really nasty to them. So I think even just they say about history repeating itself. Like I think if you're talking with someone, you're going out with someone and they're like kind of giving you all these really bad stories about all these awful things that happened in their past, like, I don't know, like that's one way to be like, well, if it happened before, it could happen again. So,
Yeah.
I think that just starting off saying, look, I identified that she was a rational person and that she's not vindictive, because I think that's where relationships go when they go south, as they go vindictive. It not saying it wasn't perfect, because it was very stressful when we were going through divorce, and we had some assets we had to split up, and we were basically like real estate partners. So we had like 12 or 13 houses that we had to figure out that we owned together, that we had to figure out what to
Hmm.
do with those houses. So what do you do with them, right? Like we had more money in some of them were rental, they were all rentals. Some of them cash flowed better than others. Some of them were worth more than others. Some, like there's all these different metrics, and it's like, how do you split that up? And to her credit, like, albeit it was a negotiation, just like if you're negotiating with a seller to buy a deal or to negotiate with a realtor, at least there was no like, I want to just screw you just to screw you. It was like, hey, I just want what's mine, and I want to, you to get what's yours. But there was no
Yeah.
like vindictiveness to it, which I appreciated. So albeit it dragged out a little bit longer than I liked it to. I think that it in the end, like once we agreed, then everything was good. There's a big sigh of relief. But I mean, it all starts in the beginning, right? And if there's a bunch of red flags and then you continue on with that, well, there's no one to blame but yourself.
That's a good point. Why? So, in your case, it made sense for you guys to split up as business partners as well. Do you see it like, do you see some circumstances being different to where it could work to stay business partners with your ex spouse or ex period? Because you guys were successful together, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
y'all had,
yeah, I think that it's an interesting point, because we kind of looked at that as like, hey, why don't we just keep these properties? We'll just be business partners without anything extra. But I think that part of the reason why we split up was because of the fact that my vision for success was different than hers, right? And it's really hard. I think when you ask someone like, hey, how do you want to be, do you want to be successful? 110 out of 10 people are going to say, of course I do. But then it's like, but what does success look like to you? Does that mean that, and what are you willing to give up for that success, right? Like, are you willing to not go on that extra vacation? Are you willing to not buy the fanciest this or that, right? And there's not like a right or wrong answer, but unfortunately, I think that our vision started to slightly drift apart, and that made it tough. So then if we were going to still, let's just say we were going to own those 13 houses together, and then what, right? Like if what she thinks is going to work is maybe not what I think, then it probably wasn't going to work out. So I think it'd be very, very difficult to kind of stay on as business partners after going through a 6-year marriage, and we were together 10 years. It's probably something that the likelihood of it being successful is probably, if I was a betting man, I would say to move against it. But it's not to say it can't happen, but I think it's going to be that would be the extreme for it to actually work out.
okay.
So
Yeah,
you got to
thanks for
pull the
that
band-aid
insight.
off sometimes.
Right? Yeah. And that sucks because it's also like it's a habit at that point, right? You've been with this person for so long. I have to go shut this guy up.
It's all good. He should come on. He should come with us. Come on the podcast.
Okay, I'm back. Well, thanks. Anyway, so COVID starts. You hit yourself in the face with a brand new business. You're out of a new relationship. Your 2 dogs died. Where does that leave you, and how long does it take you to make your next step?
So it took me. I was in it for a year, and then I kind of came together with my current business partner, David.
Did
Um,
you meet him through a mastermind as well?
No, I met him through doing deals together. So we like at first I wholesaled him deals, and then he would renovate them and sell them, and then we started to partner like on individual deals. So I would bring him the deal at my cost, basically, instead of marking up the property and like making 10 grand or 20 grand or whatever on a wholesale deal, we would do it at cost, and then we would split the profits on the back end. And so we kind of like slowly, organically built that relationship of trust and loyalty. And then his business partner left him during COVID. And so he's kind of similar to me, where he likes to have a business partner. And so then he approached me and said, hey, Clark, do you want to do this together? And I was like, you're damn right I do. Like I need someone to go arm in arm and to bust through doors every morning. So we came together in 2021. And then we basically flipped a bunch of houses together. We've tried some different ventures. So we've tried starting a lending company. So we did that. We started a podcast together. So we're about a year into our podcast journey. So that's been interesting as you're going to find out. Like it's a bit of a labor of love. Uh,
Yeah.
and so, but it's fun. Like this is like a passion project, right? To talk into a mic and hear yourself and hear different people's stories. But yeah, so I've basically been doing that and just trying to figure out life. We kind of stopped flipping houses for a while, and then the money stopped coming in. So now we're kind of back to the grind of back to flipping houses because rentals only make so much money, and it takes time to build businesses. Building businesses from scratch is not easy. I know the mastermind we're in, they tend to preach like go buy a business that's like already up and running. And there's a lot to be said for that because we started the lending business, and starting anything from scratch is freaking hard. Like it just is. And all those
Yeah.
things that you have to go through that you don't think about, and then mistakes that you make along the way.
Yeah, so I mean that's where I'm at, right? I just started what I'm doing in August, which is like I don't want to count, but like roughly 6 months ago. And there's pros and cons I think to both. When because I like for example, my parents have a business that I know they want to sell soon, and I'm thinking I would love to buy it because like I'm passionate about that business. With what money, I don't know. We'll get there when we get there. But you're buying something that works, but maybe it doesn't work the way you want it to work. And whenever you're building something, you get to build it the way you want to build it, but it's not always as fast as you think it can be. Or if it's too fast, it's not as well done as you would like it to be. So there's pain points on both sides. But I think there is something to be said about accelerated growth with buying something that's already working and then just improving upon that.
I think it'd be interesting. What's holding you back from your parents? Can your parents won't give you like an owner finance deal where they take some money and then stretch out some payments? That's the first thing that popped in my head.
What's holding me back is my personal opinion on why that business is not bigger than it is because family always got in the way. The family's dynamic within operations. And if I buy it, I don't know if I'll be able to say this is mine now. I
Right.
get to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm sure that will be the wrong thing to do. But sometimes when it's the right thing to do, they will think differently, right? And they'll
Right.
have opinions. So it's a question of two things. One, can I handle it mentally? And two, where am I going to get this money from? The money part, I think I could figure out relatively easily. I just have to do like some digging and research and stuff. But yeah, the mental part, I think. At what point do you stop putting yourself first, or how do you balance putting yourself first in certain areas?
Yeah. Definitely, it sounds like that the relationship part of that purchase would be much more difficult than just finding some money to buy it or put a down payment. Because if you've got relationships and you've got ties, and then do you really own it, or do your parents still kind of like want to chime in and tell you to do it or not do it? And
Or telling you that you're doing it wrong
right, you're doing it
when you're
wrong.
like grinding, because like I've already been in that situation. My parents had to move away for health reasons, and I had to step in. And then my mom comes back like months later, and she was like, nothing is the way that I left it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's operating better, but
Right.
it's just something you're not familiar with, right? So
Well, I think it all comes down to upfront expectations on anything, right? And so it's like, hey, I like that's something for me. It's like, hey, if I'm interested in buying something, I want to say very upfront, the worst thing I'm worried about right now is that I'm going to buy this from you guys, and I'm just going to buy built-in bosses that are going to like, micromanage me, and I don't
mhm.
want it to ruin because it can ruin relationships, right? Like that's
Yeah,
family. So
yeah.
being able to set up that upfront contract, like, listen, let's just put money aside for a second. I need to know that this is my business. This is my baby. I'm going to own it. If I ask you for advice, by all means, give me all these amazing opinions you're about to give me. But if I don't ask you for advice, this is the way I want to take it. And please don't step on my toes. And if you don't feel like you can do that, then I shouldn't buy it. I mean, I think that's like the first discussion
That's a
to
good
have.
That's a good conversation. I did mention that I have the itch to purchase it, and she instantly started giving me like ideas. And I was like, well, if and when I do buy this, I will be the only family member working here.
Yeah. That would make it the easiest thing is to separate it right there, so there's no one working in the
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my brother was there when I said that, and he took that to heart. That was months ago. Every time he gets a chance, he mentions it, brings it up, and it's just like a bitter conversation. So it's like, do I want this problem? I don't know.
That conversation is so much easier to have at the beginning than, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So the earlier you
Mhm.
can have that conversation, it needs to be the first conversation. But then after that, then you're not, you don't have people stepping on your toes. And I think it's also very important. It's like when you go into any negotiation, is that you need to be able to walk away, right? So if you go
Mm,
into it and say, if you don't feel like you can do this, I'm totally fine with just letting you guys sell it, and that may still be the best thing. And being
yeah.
able to walk away is if you go in knowing that you have to buy the business, you're just going to compromise on things. Okay, they kind of said they wouldn't step in, knowing that they probably will. So it's like you have to be able to go in knowing that you are okay walking away from this business and letting them just ride off into the sunset by selling it to a third party that you don't know.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm sorry that I'm like, we're going into this topic, but I would love to have this conversation. I think a big reason I want to purchase it is not because I don't think it's like a thriving business right now. It's a business that has definitely allowed us to survive. As you know, we've been in business for over 20 years. I grew up with it, right? So for me, it's like a passion project, right? Like
Right,
I grew up with this company. This company and I are almost the same age, and so it would break my heart to see someone else treat it as just a business, because
right.
not only is it a, kind of a part of like my upbringing, but I also really believe in our product. I think we have an outstanding product that kind of sells itself if we know how to put it in the right markets. And I was just talking to my friend about this a few days ago, and I was thinking, like, we were discussing this, and she said, like, what would you do differently now than you did then, like when you had the chance to,
Right,
take over. And it's like, well, now I have a different community. I have a brand new, toolbox, right?
right.
I didn't know masterminds existed. I didn't know ambitious people like I do today. At that time, I didn't know any business owners. So I feel like I would be better equipped to make better decisions now.
I mean, it sounds to me like it's certainly. I mean, the fact that you like it, you enjoy it, you understand it. It sounds to me the only hurdle is just having that.
Relationships.
Yeah, it's having that very, elephant in the room type discussion very early on to make sure that everyone's on board, knowing that like you're the chef in the kitchen and you don't need other chefs. That doesn't mean that you can't have people come help you make dinner from time to time, but you're the chef and there's no other sous chefs allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Okay, so you mentioned that you came across your partner now, but you went into flipping houses. Is that your main I guess moneymaker right now, flipping?
Yeah, I mean, there's no quicker way in real estate, in my opinion, to go make quick money is by flipping houses. You can get it done. I've started to dabble in building, so we've done some developing. So I've built a couple of like ADUs, the additional dwelling units that you put in the back, like the backyard. We're on kind of our second development. We're doing like a $1 million build on a property in Tampa that we're going to sell for 2 million. So that's like a big kind of scary moment. So yeah, so that'll be cool. And ironically, I went out and got a refinance and got a line of credit for my rental properties. Used that money, that line of credit, to use as the down payment on this build, and then my rental cash flow is covering the interest on that. So you could say potentially that I'm getting into this $2 million build for no money out of my own pocket, and my rental properties are what's basically covering the debt service until we can build it and sell it. So that's kind of a cool thing that to be able to do that. But yeah, flip, but it's going to take us 18 months start to finish, and we're already like 6 months in and we still haven't even got the permit yet. So building is very slow. It's very frustrating dealing with the municipalities in terms of dealing with that. But yeah, flipping houses is kind of like the thing that pays the bills. I'm not passionate about it whatsoever. I don't
Hmm.
really like it. It's very crowded. It's risky right now with this market, but it does enable me to kind of stay afloat so that I can try cooler stuff like building. Like I want to go out and buy a big 100+ unit multifamily this year. That's kind of like my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to buy a 100+ unit and just continue to grow my rental portfolio so that I can travel around the world and do cool shit, basically.
Is that your main hobby, traveling?
I would say so in terms of like for leisure, like just, being able to travel internationally. I have my girlfriend, she kind of shares that same passion. And, so I've been to, I'm getting close to, I should have hit around 25 countries this year in total that I've been to. So I enjoy Latin America and South America. I take Spanish classes twice a week. So I'm slowly but surely learning a little bit and speaking Spanish. I've taken Spanish classes for probably 4 or 5 years now. So I've done that. But yeah, I just enjoy traveling overseas to anywhere, to Europe. Went to Egypt last year. That was really cool. a bunch of different
What is
countries.
Egypt? Where were you in Egypt?
So I was in Cairo. I was only there for 4 days, but it was definitely very much worth going. It was freaking nuts. Like it is nuts there. Like the traffic and the people. I mean, everyone's super nice. Like don't go on the travel advisory thing from the United States because if you read that stuff, you won't leave your state of Ohio if you're listening to it because everywhere is so dangerous and everywhere is like don't travel or you're going to get like murdered.
Yeah.
So it was like a super high warning for Cairo for whatever reason. It was like totally fine. We were there, like, it's just a very, Cairo has 25 million people. So it is a huge, huge city and it's massive. But being able to see all the pyramids and Giza and all the stuff, we went sandboarding like 3 hours outside of Cairo. So just the type of experiences and one of my favorite things about traveling is that I get to ask everyone that I'm around, right? Whether it's a tour guide or just the waitress at the coffee shop is like my I have a couple questions. Number one is like, what do you think of America? And then number two is like just asking them questions about the local culture, like what everybody looks at. And it really helps to give you like a worldly view of, what other people see things. And like, I think the number one takeaway that I've had after traveling to 20 plus countries is like, the world is not like center around the United States. Like I think
Yeah.
we kind of think that it's like, oh, everyone just like looks at the US as like this like massive like amazingness, right? And that they just would give their left arm to move to the United States. And then you realize that, you know what, like these people put their pants on one leg at a time. They have a job, they go to work, they meet with family on the weekends, and it's kind of not that much different than the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Did you take a tour guide in Cairo, or did you kind of solo it a little bit?
No, we took a tour guide, and we had a really good tour guide that like took us around and showed us a bunch of cool stuff.
Nice. Yeah. So I'm glad you had a good experience because I've heard from other Americans, white skinned Americans, that they go through really bad harassment in Egypt. And so most of the, like, I went and whatever, has been like, it's nice, but the harassment. And then when I was there, everyone would talk to me in Arabic because I think I blend
Yeah,
in. So I would be quiet. I
right,
wouldn't say a thing. I seemed like a bitch. I would just walk away and
yeah,
because I figured if I speak any English, like it is
right,
obvious where I live. But I could hide in speaking Spanish. So
yeah,
that was actually one of my favorite stories. Is I went to Khan Khalili, which is like the flea market basically, one day, and I spent a few hours there, and I was looking for some. Well, as I went through different shops, I found some pants that I really liked, and I was asking how much it was in Arabic, and I don't know why I was asking that because whenever they would give me an answer, I don't know what number that is.
right, right,
So I kept thinking like because I could count to 10, but nothing was 10 pounds. So
right,
like
right.
I didn't know the other numbers. And I kept asking, thinking I would at some point understand what the number meant, but I didn't. Anyway, so I see these kinds of pants in different stalls, and so then I was like, "Cuánto cuesta?" I started, saying in Spanish and seeing if there's any Spanish speakers around here. And then finally, the place where I bought it, he's like, "Oh, Mexique!" And he was like so excited. He was like, "Oh, yo amo Mexico. I love
Yeah,
Mexico."
yeah.
And he's like, "You know what? Mexico, third world country just like us. I give you Egyptian price." Like,
Wow, look at you working
thanks.
the system. Everything is a negotiation over there, So good for you.
I was like, what a backhanded compliment. I'll take it.
Hey, you got 50% off or 90% off or whatever it was.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think
um,
I saw that. So I did hear that they like get really close to you, and it's a little more like a cultural thing. I think I'm 6'5", and I don't know. It wasn't like that really for me. It was definitely there were times where it's just so massive and there's so many people. But everyone was super nice. Like
mhm,
there's so many like beautiful like kind people in this world, and to be able to like really like get a chance to try and like interact with them, like it was really cool. My tour guide, I stayed in touch with him on WhatsApp, and we went before the whole thing with Gaza, right? And
mhm,
so I was really interested because I was like, hey, what do you think? Right? You're in Cairo,
yeah.
you're next door to Gaza. They're trying to, the Palestinians are trying to, leave and go into Egypt. And it was like really interesting to just hear his thoughts, which were going to be so totally different than anything I'd see on the news, anything I'd
Mhm,
see talking to people here. And so that's what I thoroughly enjoyed is like getting just a total third party that didn't necessarily have a dog in the fight, but kind of had a dog in the fight. So just those
Yeah.
types of connections that you can make are, to me, are so much cooler than just going to Disneyland and, paying $36 for a cup of ice cream.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that. I used to okay, I used to judge the people that go to like all inclusive resorts. Because I was like, that's not really traveling. You're just,
Right.
going
Yep.
somewhere and like you're in a building for a week and it feels like you're not because, the beach is there. And until I was invited to a wedding at an all-inclusive resort. We were just there for I think 2 nights and 3 days. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like this is also nice, but they each serve their purpose. And it's nice to be able to get to do both. Okay, so I had a question about flipping. How does one even start? Because flipping sounds like a really daunting task to me. I don't have an eye for design, personally. I feel like it's a really big financial risk. What I think things would set you up for success to doing your first flip successfully.
So I'm glad you said the eye for design, because that is about 0.5% of how important it is to be able to be a good flipper, is eye for design. So whatever your eye for design is, it's probably 10x better than my eye for design. To kind of put your listeners at ease, is like, it's not a lot of time, and you don't know what you don't know until you get into something, right? So it's like when we started the lending business, like there's things that we just didn't know until you jumped into it. It's very simple. You have to be able to get a good deal. Everything else, you can have the best contractors, the best like realtor to sell it, the best quote unquote eye for design. And if you overpaid for the property, you are not going to do well, and you're going to be out of the game before you even really get started. I think that initially, one of the best pieces of advice I got from my home investors like mentor guy that they assign you to when you buy the franchise is, he said, for 2 years, do not buy anything and flip it. He goes, just wholesale the contract for 2 years. Okay. And meaning that if me and you agree to, I buy your house for 100K, I turn around and try and go find someone that'll pay me 112K for it, that I can assign the contract to, that will actually bring the money to close. Right. So that's what assigning is. A lot of people say wholesaling or assigning, they're kind of used interchangeably. If I would have taken that advice, I probably would have made an additional $100,000 in my first year, because I was like, wanted to go out and do these big rehabs and like all the excitement of HGTV. And I had no freaking clue how much renovations cost, how to deal with contractors, right? So it's one thing to go into renovations and flipping if you have 2 years under your belt of kind of evaluating deals and trying to get good deals. And then you're like, all right, now I'm ready. But if you're going into it and you just think you're just going to like go out and buy a property at the right price, get contractors you've never worked with at the right price, they do a good job, sell it in the right market where there's low risk, like that's like catching lightning in a bottle, and it's very, very difficult. So if you're getting started, my recommendation is don't buy anything, and just learn how to evaluate source deals through pulling lists, trying to find like distressed sellers that you can help out of a jam, and then letting someone else take the rest of the risk. And you're going to make a smaller amount, but you're also not going to lose your ass in the first 6 months that you start.
Hmm. Okay. So you don't like designing is not even the make or break at all.
No,
No, it's all
no.
about having the right deal then. What
Yeah,
makes what are some rules of thumb for what makes a good deal?
a good deal is
A
something.
deal good, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a deal, good deal. I mean, in essence, if you are able to make sure that you get the renovation. I mean, it's kind of three things. It's two things really. You have to have the right sales price. So it all works backwards, right? You don't talk about what I need to offer. It's all about what is it going to sell for when you're done, right? So you have to be really, really conservative with that number, especially now. We're doing this podcast in February of 25. So the market is a little bit unforgiving right now. Things are sitting on the market longer. You have to do a really, really nice renovation if you're going to buy something and fix it up. If you half-ass a renovation right now, it's going to collect dust on the market. No one wants grandma's kitchen. Everyone wants like new stuff. And because there's a little bit more inventory, because it's sitting, the buyer has more power. So why do I want grandma's kitchen when I can get brand new kitchen, right? So it all starts from, if you have to make sure you understand how to evaluate the property and know that it's going to sell for 300,000 nicely fixed up. And then you need to make sure that you take your renovation budget, kind of get in with a contractor, let them know what you're doing to try and give you like real life bids. And then, you're going to plug that into a flipping calculator. And, we have that stuff. I'd be more than happy to send you an investment guide that we have that we kind of put together with like a flipping calculator, how to run the like kind of the bid schedule in terms of the construction bid. So we have all that. I'd be more than happy to share that with any of your listeners if they reach out to you. But
Yeah, sure.
you have to have
If you
those
have a
two
link,
things.
we could put it in the show notes, or they
Yeah,
could just reach out to you directly and
yeah,
ask you
yeah.
for
We
it.
just put it in the show notes. It's all good. But if you have to know those two things, and if you overestimate the purchase or this resale price and you underestimate the construction bid, which is usually what happens, again, like it all that, because that's how you come up with a number to make, and then you just see how much profit you want to make, and it's not easy right now. So a lot of seasoned people are getting hurt; they're getting caught out with houses. So I can only
Mhm.
imagine if you're starting out and just doing it. I would say do not go in and flip. Just go and trying to find a good deal. Try and carve out 5, 10, 15, 20 grand in terms of an assignment and let someone else, let more seasoned people renovate in this kind of risky market.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. So I've been scared of, because I hear that flipping is attractive, but I always think like I wouldn't even know where to start. So it's all in the numbers. It's a
It's
numbers
all the
game at the
numbers.
end.
That's it. It has
That's
nothing to
great.
do with you got your half percent in design. An old kitchen, most people are buying 12, 1,300 square foot houses, so there's not like a ton of room for design, right? Like you've got like a semi small kitchen, right? Like the bedrooms are 10 by 12. Like there's not a lot of design. It's just taking out the old, take out grandma's kitchen and go back with the same design and put in something new that looks good and has nice granite on it and backsplash. So it doesn't really take a lot of design. But I think most people start out and they're playing the two, three, $400,000 range. Obviously, if you're out doing $1 million flip, well, now the design thing comes into play. But that's really really risky. I'd stay away from that, especially early on.
Okay. So I think I have just two last things I want to talk about. I would like to talk about the pros and cons of having a business partner, which you mentioned you prefer, and you touched on that a little bit, and also what you're doing with Burn Your Boats, your podcast, and how that's going.
So the business partner pros and cons. I mean, there's always going to be times where it's nice to kind of do what you want to do and you don't have to like get a blessing from your business partner. So there's always going to be times where you butt heads, but I think if your business partner kind of complements your skills where they're not the exact same, and I think that's one of the challenges that me and my business partner have run into is that we have a lot of the same skill sets. And my partner is 10 years older than me. He's a little bit bigger, faster, stronger than me. So he's kind of like the visionary, and then I'm kind of like the junior visionary in some regards. And
Yeah.
so we neither of us super enjoy the integration part of things. It's like, okay, here's this great idea, but who's going to integrate it and who's going to tell you if it's a good idea or a bad idea? Because just because you're a visionary doesn't mean that you just like have amazing ideas. Sometimes those ideas are like really shitty because they don't work for this reason or that reason, right? But sometimes you need someone to tell you that, right? And so we've had our kind of our office administrator, her name is Sheena. She does a pretty good job of like telling us why that won't work. So she kind of plays that role within our kind of our companies. So you do need someone that can really integrate it. And so I think that's where partners, if you can have like a visionary and an integrator, as business partners, that's going to be a very complementary thing. Go read Rocket Fuel if you don't know what I'm talking about by Gino Wickman. It's a great book that really kind of breaks down who you are. Like you first need to know who you are. Are you a visionary or are you an integrator? And whichever one that you are, go find the opposite so that you can become a good team. I like having business partners. I enjoy it. And, it's fun to go out on a happy hour and have a beer with your business partner and talk shop about things, so it's entrepreneurship is lonely. Like it is lonely. So if it can be a little less lonely, then I think that's a good thing. You asked about burn your boats. So my partner and I, David, we have a podcast called Burn Your Boats Wealth. We kind of talk about burning your boats, meaning like that you are kind of at a point where you need to take that next step with the confidence like we talked about earlier. And sometimes you've got to rip that band-aid off, because if you stay in your comfort zone, you're probably not going to achieve what you really want to achieve. And whatever your why is, right? Like my why, like I love traveling, as we just talked about. If I was chained to a 9 to 5 every day, I wouldn't be able to travel like I do. Not to say that you still don't have to work your ass off. A lot of times you actually have to work harder, and sometimes you make less
Yeah.
money for the
Yeah.
bigger picture. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think, oh, I'm just going to buy a business and like it'll just kind of quietly run itself, and I won't have to work as hard, and I'll probably drink more pina coladas on the beach. Like that's not really how it works. You actually work harder, have more risk, and you potentially make less money, but there
Mhm.
is a bigger picture at the end of the day. So we interview a lot of people that have done really, really cool things, and we just talk about a lot of things. And a lot of it surrounds real estate because it's what we know, it's what we're comfortable. But
Mhm.
it's been fun. It's been challenging. Trying to grow a podcast is just like, trying to grow anything, right? In these days of social media and YouTube and all the different things, it's not easy, and but it's fun, and I wouldn't change anything.
I like that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, if people want to get in touch with you, where do you recommend they reach out first?
Yeah, I would just say go to our Instagram, our Facebook, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can get in touch with us at Burn Your Boats Wealth on Facebook or Instagram. Is probably the easiest way to do it. And you can message us there. And we're on YouTube, Spotify, all the different podcast platforms. So we love interacting with people. I love for people to tell us that we're wrong or what we said was the dumbest thing they've ever heard, that they disagree. I love debating, so it's fun to debate like in a nice professional manner. So yeah,
Yeah.
reach out to us at Burn Your Boats Wealth, and love to have a discussion, see if we can help you maybe on your real estate journey if you're stuck on something, and maybe we can provide a little bit of insight or maybe just some tips or confidence to be able to like get over that hump, because it's something where it's very like we preach like buying rental properties for passive income to be able to give you more freedom to do the things that you really want to do. And it's really hard. Most people don't get past like the first or second house. So my personal goal is like, how can I get you to like that fourth or fifth property, right? Just something that gets you over the hump, because it gets easier each time to buy it. It gets easier each time to refinance. It gets easier to know the inspectors, the contractors, all the different trades that go into that. And once you can kind of get over that hump, it gets easier and you get more confidence at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. I'll have to hit you up about getting my property number too for sure because I'm still working on that. So
Let's do it. And I want to know about your business with your parents.
oh my gosh, yeah, I'll definitely keep you informed or up to date on that. See what happens. Awesome, Clark. Well, it was great talking with you. So I'm sure we'll have you back on in later episodes, and we can see what's going on then.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, everyone.
See ya.